What's going on, guys? Today, I've got a Pathfinder Ranger build that uses Shattering Concoction that does over 10 million DPS. This makes Pinnacle bosses a joke, and here you can see me kill +4 Zesh in under 4 seconds once we start throwing our concoctions. This is achieved due to Widowhell making our Shattering Concoction level 37 thanks to level projectile skills and increased quiver effects from the passive skill tree and our jewels. Real quick before we get into the video, I want to encourage you guys to go ahead and jump to the bossing rotation part of the video, as it's important to understand how I'm doing so much damage rather than copying and not watching the explanation. I've also included my path to building link and a Maxroll link if you want to see my exact gear and skill tree setup. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to stop by my Twitch. I'm live every single day after 4 to 5 p.m. EST, and with that, let's get into the video. This build makes mapping, breaches, Trial Secumus, and all other content other than Simulacrum super easy. Simulacrum requires a bit more tankiness, so I'll make a Simulacrum build here soon. With that, let's break down how the build works. So the way that we achieve a level 37 Shattering Concoction is due to a combination of Widowhail and our jewels. Widowhail is a unique bow that states that we get increased bonuses from our equipped quiver. This means whatever stats on our quiver are amplified based on the percentage increase on Widowhail. This can take a +2 level projectile skill quiver all the way up to a +15 level projectile skill quiver when combined with jewels. Now the jewels I keep referencing are emerald jewels that give us the same bonus as Widowhail but on a smaller scale. When we combine a ton of these, it'll jump our damage up a ton. So if I was to take out the jewels, I'd go from 1.4 million tooltip DPS to 500k tooltip DPS, so it's super important to get these with the highest bonus possible. The other important stat to keep an eye out for is critical damage bonus with attacks. With Widowhail and the jewels increasing effects from our quiver, which has critical hit chance and critical damage bonus, we want to get our crit hit chance around 50% base and our bonus as high as possible. I'm currently sitting at 700% main hand crit damage bonus and 4900 offhand crit damage bonus. This is what's getting us the most DPS, as our critical hit chance becomes nearly 100% when combined with critical weakness that's applied with Eye of Winter. Other important DPS factors include cold exposure, which decreases the target's cold resistance when hit, shock and the magnitude of shock, as shock increases elemental damage done to the shock target and the magnitude increases that bonus amount further, curses from hypothermia, which lowers the target's cold resistance even more, and critical weakness, which increases our critical hit chance. With that, I'll go ahead and break down the skill gems and support gems and explain them even further in depth. So I'm over here on the Pathfinder, and I want to quickly explain what we're doing with our weapon sets, because this is extremely important to make sure that you're not, one, draining all your mana, and two, actually being able to use your skills. So I have two different weapon sets right now. I have my normal damaging weapon set, and I have a lower level, just basic weapon set. And the most important thing is to make sure that your extra quiver that you have does not have level projectile skills. So what you can notice is I have things like my ball lightning is currently level 14. If I was to swap over to the main setup, it would be level 26. And this is a problem since it's going to be consuming more mana at a higher level. This also applies to our Eye of Winter. Whenever it's put on, you want this to be a lower level so it isn't moving so fast. So make sure that you are going to your skills and marking them specifically for what weapon set you want to use them. So what I'm doing is my Vine Arrow, I'm not using it for damage or anything like that, so I have it set to weapon set 2 only. So you can see I'm on weapon set 1. If I was to use my Vine Arrow, it will swap automatically to weapon set 2 and not consume a ton of my mana. So you can see my mana is still plenty fine right here. This is super important to make sure that you actually have mana for your curses and stuff like that. So what I do to quickly swap back to our weapon set 1 for damage, rather than having to click the button, I set my hypothermia to weapon set level 1 right here, or weapon set 1 right here. So that way what I can do is I walk into a boss fight, I can use my ball lightning, I can explode, I can cast this, and it'll automatically switch me back to my damaging setup. So once I cast the hypothermia, I'm ready to go. I can do damage, but I can do everything prior to that on the lower level setup, so I'm not wasting all my mana, and I can just cast and go. So make sure you're doing this so that you are getting the most out of your mana. You don't want to be wasting all of your mana. So with that out of the way, I'll go ahead and break down the mapping and then the bossing setup. So for the mapping setup, it's really not all that different from the bossing setup. We really only take off Eye of Winter whenever we're mapping, and we slot out Cold Infusion. We put it on a Herald of Thunder so that way we can double Herald. So it doesn't really matter. It's not that big of a difference, but we are using Shattering Concoction as our main attack, and the important thing is that it consumes 3 charges from our Mana Flask, and it inflicts cold exposure on hits. This skill does a ton of flat cold damage, and anything that we hit inflicts cold exposure, so that way it'll lower the cold res and let us do more damage to them. I'm running Cold Mastery to up the level of the skill. You can see we're at 1.1. If I was to take it off, we go down to 1.021. So it's important to get that level up. We have scatter shots that we will throw extra projectiles. The extra projectiles increase the AoE effect and also increase our total damage. This is super important to run. We have martial tempo for more attack speed, so we're throwing these more often. I'm running close combat right now so that the closer we are to the target, the more damage that we do. And I have Rising Tempest, so that way the more elemental damage that we do, it'll increase this damage even further. So if I use my normal attack, we're always sitting at a base of that much. If I also kind of mix in some, lightning attacks or whatever, we're sitting at 1.4, so it's a nice little boost. We have Vine Arrow. This is really only for like bosses or like map bosses or your really like chunky rares that you see. I just do this to get rage and fauna mana for mana regen. I have persistence on here for increased duration. Not really important for mapping. I just have it slotted in here so I don't have to change it out so often. So I have Hypothermia. Hypothermia is a curse that applies typically to a singular target, but we are running things like Curse Ground, so that way it'll apply it on the ground rather than doing a single target. Anything standing in here is going to have its cold resistance lowered. We have Ritualistic Curse, that way it has increased area of effect. We have Heightened Curse to increase the effect of the curse, and we have Expand, so that way it has more area of effect. I'm currently running Cast on Freeze. I'm combining this with Double Heralds to create really big explosions. This isn't necessary. You could slot this out for something like Ghost Dance or any other defensive kind of cast on or anything you want to run really here. I just really like the double marks for increased damage. So I have Freezing Mark and Voltaic Mark. It will mark enemies automatically whenever we freeze, and it will cause large cold explosions and lightning explosions whenever they die. I have Magnified Effect to increase the area of those explosions. I have Impetus to increase the amount of energy we gain whenever we freeze. And I have Inspiration so that way these marks aren't draining all of our mana as we're running around. I have Lightning Warp and Ball Lightning. These are also primarily for bossing, but you could use these for movement. You just throw your Ball Lightning and you can teleport to it using Lightning Warp. In Lightning Warp, I have Overcharge for more shock magnitude, for more damage. I have Lasting Shock for the duration of the shock, and Lightning Pen, so that way we do more damage to increase our chance to shock. I have Ball Lightning with Acceleration, so that way the projectile moves faster for us. I'm running Double Herald for clear right now. I have Cold Infusion and Herald of Thunder, so that way it does cold damage. This will let it freeze. We have Glaciation for more freeze buildup. We have Ambush for higher crit chance on full life enemies. And we have Ice Bite, so that when we freeze something with this skill, we'll get the 35% damage boost. This is super awesome for getting that increased damage. I have Herald of Ice down here. We have Lightning Infusion to let it do lightning damage. This is what's letting these two chin off of each other. I have Long Shots, that way we get more damage from further out. This chains out really far, so this is a nice increase. I have Conduction for increased chance to shock, so this could help us chain more often. And I have Innervate, so that way whenever this thing kills a shocked enemy, it'll give us another 35% damage boost. For our defenses, I'm currently running Grim Feast. This will, whenever we kill an enemy, it has a chance to spawn a Remnant. If we pick up that Remnant, we will fill our ES. It can go up to double, so we could be running around with like 6.6k ES whenever we're mapping. I also have Wind Dancer to increase our evasion rating. I have Pin, Blind, and Maim in here, so that way if we do get hit and this goes off, it will slow down the targets that do hit us. This is super important to hit with quality, so you get an extra stage, so that's an extra 19% evasion per stage. We're currently sitting at 70% evasion, so make sure you're getting this. If I was to turn this off, I would be at 55, so super important. So now I'll go ahead and switch to the bossing setup. So I'm over here on the bossing setup, and we are still using Shattering Concoction as our main damage here. We have Cold Mastery for an extra level. I have Scatter Shot for extra projectiles, Martial Tempo for more attack speed, and I have Cold Infusion in here instead of Close Combat because it's going to juice our damage up. And I have Ice Bite, so that way whenever we freeze a target with our Shattering Concoction, we'll get 35% more damage. That is an additive, that's more damage, so it's great for getting a huge damage increase. I'm running Vine Arrow with Font of Rage, Font of Mana, and Persistence. So whenever we shoot our Vine Arrow projectile out, it's going to create a little flower guy that will give us some rage stacks to increase our damage, and a Font of Mana, which will give us some mana regen. I have Persistence here, so that way the flower lasts longer. We have Hypothermia. We're using this to curse the ground right here to decrease the cold resistance of a target standing in here. This is all thanks to Curse Ground, which will make it an area rather than cursing a single target. I have Ritualistic Curse for increased area of effect, Heightened Curse for the increased effect of the curse, and Expanse for more area of effect of our curse area. I currently have Cast on Freeze still in here. You could swap this out for something defensive like Ghost Dance, or maybe I've seen some people do Cast on Crit with Eye of Winter, but I prefer just to keep this in here so I can turn it on and off. We have Lightning Warp and Ball Lightning. These two we are using to shock the boss. You throw the Ball Lightning projectile and you teleport to it to explode and do a ton of shock. You want to make sure that you are running overcharge in here to increase the magnitude of the shock, to increase the amount of damage that we do. We have lasting shock to increase the duration of that shock, so the target is shocked longer, so we can keep doing damage to them, the extra damage for a longer period. And we have lightning pins, so that way it pins a little bit of lightning resist to do a bit more damage. Shock chance is tied to damage in this game. And on ball lighting, I'm just running acceleration, so that way the projectile moves a bit faster for us. I then have Eye of Winter. This is what we're using to apply critical weakness. Critical weakness is going to increase our base crit hit chance on a target. This will take our about 56% crit hit chance and make it a 100% crit hit chance at max dex. I'm running Inspiration, so that way it doesn't drain our mana. I have Unleash, so that way it throws out extra projectiles. You see I'm throwing 2. I have Arcane Tempo, so that way we cast this faster, so we can spam it a bit quicker. And I have Deceleration, so that way it moves slower, so it hits the target a bit more consistently. Something to point out is to make sure that you have it on weapon set 2, so you're not leveling it up a ton, because if we're on weapon set 1 here, you see it's level 29. Let me show you what that looks like. Whenever we throw it on level 29, it moves that fast. It'll be super hard to hit the target. It drains our mana a ton, so make sure you're on weapon set 2 only. I throw it, it moves much slower, and it hits the target more effectively to apply that critical weakness quicker. Defensively, we are running Grim Feast and Wind Dancer, same as before with Pin Blind Maim in here. You can slot out, like I said, the cast on for Ghost Hands to throw in there. Grim Feast isn't really good for bosses, but if you're doing something like Zesh where you kill targets beforehand, going into the fight with Overflowed ES is nice. Wind Dancer isn't effective against, evasion in general isn't effective against big boss attacks, but it is nice for the small projectiles that some of the summon things kind of do, so it's nice to have this. And then it's important to make sure you have Herald of Ice on, because Herald of Ice is going to be increasing our total damage. So you can see right now we have 1.4. If I was to turn off Herald of Ice, we have 1.241. This is because a skill in the passive skill tree right here, the Coming Calamity, we get increased cold damage while affected by Herald of Ice. So making sure to still have that on is important to ensure that we still are getting the increased cold damage. So now I'll go ahead and break down the items that we're using. So here's the gear that we're using. For the bow, I'm using Widow Hail. It will increase the bonuses from our Quick Quiver. Mine is corrupted, so normally the max is 250, but I have a 292 since it's been corrupted. For the rune slots on here, I'm running 2 soul cores that they're going to be increasing the elemental damage with our attacks. I tried playing around with the one that increases your crit damage bonus, but this seems to be giving us more DPS. For the quiver, it is important that you get one with +2 level of all projectile skills, and you want to try to get one with crit hit chance and crit damage bonus. These two being amplified due to our Widow Hail and our jewels is super important for getting our crit hit chance and our bonus up a ton. This will skyrocket your DPS. Ideally, I don't need projectile speed. I would much rather that be something like another added flat damage, or maybe even increased damage with bow skills. I don't know if that would affect us. Same thing for the mana per enemy killed down there. If that was crit hit chance rather than that would be a perfect bow for me, or sorry, a perfect quiver for me. For the gloves, I'm running Hoa for the increased attack speed and the added lightning damage. These are pretty much best in slot for most builds in the game. You could probably slot these out with something else if you don't have them. I would just, if you don't have Hoas, go for a normal rare with increased attack speed and some added damages, I would say. For the body armor, I have a body armor with increased spirit. It's important to get our spirit up to 180. That will let us get all the gems, the support gems and skill gems that we want. So added spirit, I got an EVES, and we have some resistances on here. On the helmet, it's important to get increased crit hit chance. I've also decided to go with a pure ES here. I also got some resistances. It would be nice to get maybe some max mana instead of accuracy rating up there. On my boots, we got movement speed, of course, and then I got some resistances. It would also be nice to get some form of mana here, probably. I have the Ingenuity Belt. The Ingenuity Belt is going to be increasing the bonuses from our rings. I also have one corrupted for increased evasion rating. That's nice for getting our evasion up. If I was to take this off, we would go from 70 to 68. Our total value there would go from 73.43 to 66.12. So it's nice for getting a little extra boost. For the rings, I'm running a Sapphire ring right here for the cold res with some added lightning damage and flat cold damage. The flat cold damage is super important. I tried ones that were just flat damage, and I guess because we don't have a ton of increased elemental damage, this flat boost right here was just a ton to have. I have max mana, I have all attributes and dex, so that way our stats get boosted with the increase from Ingenuity. This ring over here, it's pretty much the same thing. This one I'm focusing a bit more on our resistances here. With Ingenuity increasing our resistances a ton thanks to increased effect, it's nice to have at least one ring that's focused on your resistances. But same thing, some added flat damage, increased cold damage. For the amulet, it's important to allocate with Storm Charged. I've tested doing things like Overwhelming Strike or Barbaric Strength, but Storm Charged is calcing out on PoB with the best total DPS. It won't show in the tooltip, but once you crit, Storm Charge will give you that increased elemental damage, so I would totally run Storm Charged. Otherwise, just get an amulet with +3 level projectile skills. If you can't afford a +3, go for a +2. It's completely fine. And just make sure you get Spirit on here so that way you can get the 180 necessary Spirit. I also have increased maximum energy shield, so that way we get a little bit extra energy shield, and increased crit damage bonus, so that way we get a bit more crit. For the flask, which is important, typically I would skip over this, but it is important since our attack uses mana flash charges. You want to pick a flask with either regenerating passively charges or increased charges, or maybe reduced charges used. Anything of that sort is nice to run here. And I just run a normal life flask here with a ton of recovery. Because we do use Eternal Youth to heal our ES. And I run a Thawing Charm, so I'm not getting spam frozen. You could run like a Headhunter belt, and then you could have three slots for the charm, and you could run like a Stun Charm or 2 Stun Charms and a Freeze Charm or something like that. But either a Stun or Freeze Charm here is super nice. So with that, I'll go ahead and break down the passive skill tree. All right, so we're here with the skill tree. I'm going to go ahead and zoom out for those who just want to look at it quickly and copy. So here's the first part of the skill tree. And I'll move up here to this part and pause for a second. And then I'll pull up here and pause for a second. All right, so for the Ascendancy tree, I have decided to go for Connected Chemistry right here. You want to go this way, so that way whenever we're killing things, we're getting more flash charges gained. Because our Shattering Concoction uses our mana flash charges, we want to make sure that we are getting these back whenever we're killing things. I'm running Shattering Concoction, of course. This is the main skill right here. I've gone this route right here to get the extra skill points. We get 1 there and 5 there, so that's nice. And then we have increased skill speed and less movement speed penalty whenever we're using our skills, so that way we can move a bit quicker. If for some reason you don't have an issue with your charges being gained, you could go for Relentless Pursuit right here, but I prefer this much more whenever I'm mapping. So starting out, I did toy around with just going for the stats right here to save you some points, but these are so valuable for increasing your damage like a ton. So you can see that you're going to want to be running these over like some stats. Right here, make sure you are getting these ASAP. They will increase the bonuses gained from Quiver. I path out this way, and I have a controlled metamorphosis in here with a large ring. You could either do a medium large or a large ring. Try to get one with lower decreases to your resistances. The chaos doesn't matter since we're running CI, but this number right here, try not to, murder yourself on your total resistance value there. In that ring right there, you have to pick what skills you want. I have picked Bestial Skin to get us, increased evasion rating on our body armor, some 25 dex, Falcon Technique, which is huge for increased DPS, some extra evasion and movement speed, and I've picked Maiming Strike right here. Something I do want to notate is we do use weapon set skills. I'll point those out. So we then grab these skills right here. We get the increased elemental damage, and we want to get these jewel slots right here. The jewel slots are super important for getting our DPS up because we want to slot in as many of these increased bonuses gained from Quiver and crit damage bonus jewels as possible. So you'll notice right here, I have a green branch. So whenever we're using our weapon set 2, that's what the green is you just click this right here and you can pick these skills. Whenever we're on weapon set 2, we want our magnitude of shock to be increased, so we're doing extra damage, so I picked these. I think my Maiming Strike is on weapon set 1 because it's not really necessary whenever we're just applying shock. Please refer to the Maxroll or my Path of Building to see it like closer, because it may not show because it's just a single skill right here. Same thing, go right here, we get increased bonuses from Quiver and our crit damage. We path up this way, get all these crit nodes, make sure you path right here rather than right here, because this node right here is more valuable than this node right here. It's about a 30k difference for me. I put these right here on weapon set 1, because whenever we're just applying shock, this doesn't matter, it's all about damage, so weapon set 1 right here. Same thing, we got Quiver, we got crit hit chance on this one rather than bonus. Path up here, get this node right here to get that crit brought up. Same thing, Quiver and crit damage bonus. Make sure you are getting Eternal Youth right here. This will let your Life Flask heal your energy shield. I path up here to get Spectral Ward to get some extra ES on our body armor. I come out here and get these nodes right here for crit. I put these on weapon set 1 because these won't, doing extra damage won't matter. You could do more of these on weapon set 1, I guess, but I do like the increased stats that we get here. If you have the extra level, I think I'm 93 right here. If you're 94, you can pick these two and connect rather than going up the middle. I think I have that shown in the Maxroll, so do that if you are at that level. I come down this way and I grab this jewel socket right here, and then I have all of these on weapon set 2, and they all are just doing increased chance to shock, attack and cast speed, and we got magnitude of shock and crit chance against shocked enemies. So doing these along with these right here, which increases the magnitude, is great on weapon set 2, so that way whenever we were trying to shock the boss, that this increases the chance and the effectiveness of it. So come up this way, get these crit nodes, get CI. This is making us immune to chaos damage. Same thing, got another jewel right here for quiver and crit bonus. We get patient barrier for more ES. We get the 25 intelligence right there. And we have these skills right here. Everything up this way is on weapon set 1 because it's all related to doing cold damage. So you don't need to worry about having this on weapon set 2, which is just for shocking. Come down this way. I got another jewel socket right here, quiver and crit. We come up this way and put these on weapon set 1, and we do this to increase the effect of our cold exposure that we're doing with our flask, with our frozen concoction or shattering concoction. So that way the debuff that is being applied is being increased. And then I grab another jewel socket right here for the quiver and crit, and I grab up these nodes right here. This is why I run a pure ES helmet, is because this one's giving us 70% increased ES, and then we come down all the way to the right here. So yeah, that is the passive skill tree. I'll go ahead and get into the mapping rotation and then the bossing rotation. So I've pulled up the clip of me killing Zesh +4, and I want to go ahead and break down what we're doing here. So before we're entering the boss fight, we are placing down our Vine Arrow plants right here to build our rage stacks. Once I'm near 30, I'll step forward and start the boss fight. So now that I'm at max stacks, I'm making sure to place these down so that way as I'm fighting, my rage stays up. So once the boss fight starts, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to throw my ball lightning, my E ability here. You'll see that projectile go out right here. And then lightning warp into that projectile to shock the boss. Once I've shocked the boss, I'm then hitting my Eye of Winter, so that way we can apply critically weak. You'll notice I've thrown 2, I think, and boom, we're already at max stacks of 10%. Once I've done that, the next thing I'm going to do, and it is important that this is the last thing you do in your damage rotation with the way that we have our skills and our weapon sets set up. My hypothermia uses weapon set 1. This will switch us from our low damage setup to our high damage setup. So hypothermia is the very last thing that you do before you start doing damage. So now that we are cursing the ground, we are now on our high damage setup, we can start throwing our concoction to start doing damage. And you can see immediately that he has a ton of debuffs on him right here. I think this is chill. We have shock right here. We have our lowered cold resistance due to the curse. He's being maimed. He is being exposed to cold. That's the Vine Arrow icon, and this is the critically weak. And you can see once we've hit him a couple times, the magnitude of shock jumps all the way up to 97%. He's been frozen. He's been ignited. He's been chilled. He's been shocked, he's been cursed, he's been maimed, he's been cold exposed, he's got a Vine Arrow on him, he's got a critically weak on him, he's having a bad day, he's having a really bad day, and you'll just see that his HP gets deleted. So I'll run it back real quick in real time what I'm doing here. It does take some time to get down, so practice it a bit. We Vine Arrow, get our rage stacks up. Once we go, we throw our ball lightning, we teleport into it, we throw a Vire Winter, we curse the ground, and then we throw our concoction. And that is it. You just watch his HP get deleted. So it does take a bit to get down. It did kind of mess with me for a good long while. It took a little bit to, get the hang of it. But once you get the hang of the loop, it's really simple. So just practice it a bit until you can figure it out, and I'll go ahead and break down the mapping now. So here you are on a map, and all that you really need to do is one button map. You just kind of throw your concoction, and your heralds, the explosions of the heralds will kind of take care of everything for you. You can just run around and throw these. The cast on freeze is building charges right here and applying will take mark and stuff like that, and the freezing mark, so things are just exploding. You just walk around and kind of just click. If you want to get fancy, you could mix in like some ball lightning warp teleports to speed some stuff up if you wanted to. Just to watch out and make sure don't accidentally hit your button and swap your weapon set, because then you're running around at like 100,000 DPS, which sometimes it's hard to notice. Like, you'll still kill things easily with the low damage setup. The biggest killer is you'll notice the projectile speed difference. So like, that's the normal. If I hit my button, that's how fast it moves after. So just make sure that you're not accidentally swapping to your lower damage setup. And all you got to really do is just walk around and throw some concoctions. It's really simple, really easy. So yeah. So that's going to be for the video. I am going to try to put out as many build videos as I can until the new PoE League comes out here around March 18th, they said. So I'm going to be playing a ton of different characters and putting out as many builds as I can. So you're probably going to see like a Hammer of the Gods Chronomancer here soon, and I have like a Witch, a Sorceress, and stuff like that. So I'm going to try to do some different builds and put them out here. So I'd appreciate if you guys gave them a look. Either way, I appreciate your guys' support, and I hope to see you guys in the next couple. So yeah, take care, and y'all have a good one.